Once again, I'd like to welcome you back to my channel, where we are going to go over the Artificer's Armorer discipline, providing a brief description of the subclass, as well as explain and set up the various features that are gained. Armorers are artificers who specialize in taking existing armor and making modifications to it to improve its properties and abilities. But do not mistake the abilities of the subclass as one that can be used to craft suits of armor for the party. Instead, look at it as a character that can improve upon the armor they have chosen to wear, bonding with it in the process, and making modifications to that armor to give it magical properties. As part of this process, the character's armor slowly becomes an extension of the character themselves, and can be used for both offensive and defensive capabilities, depending on the modifications you choose. Additionally, the armor becomes the focus for all of your spells, ensuring your hands are always free during combat situations. And finally, the armor is removable, which we'll see in a bit, so don't think of this as the last suit of armor your character will ever wear, unless they are killed while wearing it. This type of character will be best enjoyed by someone who loves to experiment with different aspects of their armor, as this is really the only way the subclass gains any benefits as they progress levels. As you will see as we progress through the various features gained with this subclass, it can become quite a potent suit of armor, with each piece being able to be infused with different properties. So let's begin the process of explaining the various features and spells gained through this subclass. So when your character reaches level 3 and they have chosen the Armorer specialization, your character will gain 4 starting features. And starting features for level 3 anyway. The first feature that you will acquire is called Tools of the Trade. And this gives you proficiency with heavy armor because that is going to be the armor type that you are going to be wearing, most likely. You will also gain a proficiency with Smith's Tools, but if you already have a proficiency in that particular set of artisan tools, you get to choose another one if you so desire. About the only thing that you'll want to double check in relation to this skill, or feature I should say, is to make sure that the heavy armor type has appeared here as a proficiency, which it has not. So you're going to want to go through and add heavy armor to this list. That way it's already there and in place and essentially ready for you to use. The other thing that you'll want to make sure of is that your Smith's tools is also listed here as one of the set of tools that you have available to you. So Smith's tools. Oops. This way, if the Dungeon Master has to look at your skill sheet, or character sheet, I should say, you will be able to allow them to see that you are proficient with heavy armor, as well as your Smith's tools, right from your abilities page here, under your proficiencies grouping. Just as a side note, as a Dungeon Master, unless I am giving you these tools as a reward for a particular quest, your character will have to go buy these tools before you can actually start making use of any of these features. These are not granted to you as you level up. You literally have to go and buy them, unless, as I stated earlier, you're being awarded them as part of a quest reward. Now, as an armorer, when you gain access to your armorer spells, you will be able to add these spells to your actions tab and automatically set them as prepared. Kind of like this. So once I've dragged them over, I can go through and set Magic Missile. Where is it? Here we go, as prepared, and Thunderwave as prepared. And the reason why I can do that is they do not count against your actual preparation count. So in this particular character's case, he has an intelligence level of 20, which gives him a +5 modifier. In addition, he is level 3, which means that he can add 1 additional spell through his level. That gives him a grand total of 6 spells that he can prepare through that calculation. On top of that, I can add the Magic Missile and the Thunderwave spell into the total preparation list. The catch is that these spells that I have unflagged right now as prepared can be swapped out and swapped in with whatever spell is available through your spellcasting Artificer table. So any of the spells that are here I could decide, for example, to change this catapult spell for detect magic and swap them out. I cannot do that with the magic missile or the thunderwave spell or any other spell that I have from this particular list. I will also only gain access to these spells when my armorer level has achieved the level that matches this listing. So in the case of 3rd level, I'm already there. I have gained that because of the specialization. When my character hits level 5, as long as I have put all of those levels into the armorer class, I will be able to gain access to these 2 spells. Same with level 9, level 13, and level 17. And that is how the Armorer Spells feature actually works. So the next feature that you gain is called Arcane Armor. This is also gained when you acquire level 3 and gives you the ability to, over the course of a little bit of time, convert armor that you're wearing now or a suit of armor that you have purchased into something called Arcane Armor. And this armor has a number of traits that will come into play when you're actually wearing it. And this is why you have unlocked the ability to wear heavy armor, because as an armorer, the game didn't need to restrict you to the different types of armor. So you now have proficiency with wearing light, medium, and heavy armors. Now let's return to actually taking a look at the benefits that you're going to gain here. So one of the changes that occurs, that if you have a suit of armor that requires a minimum strength in order for you to wear it, the first property is that when you convert that armor into an arcane armor, that requirement goes away. So let's say you needed a strength of 16 to wear plate armor. I think that might be the actual value you need, but in any event, if you decide to convert that suit of plate armor into arcane armor, you would no longer require a strength of 16, because the magic is helping to prop up your ability to wear it. You also gain the ability to make use of that armor as your spellcasting focus once it gains the arcane armor capabilities here, which makes it nice and convenient for you to be able to focus on your attack combinations and not have to worry about reaching for your focus when you're trying to start casting a spell. The armor itself will also grow to encompass your entire body, so you will literally be encased head to toe in this suit of armor. Now, the head area or the helmet area can be extended and retracted as required. It's a bonus action. And in addition, if you happen to lose a limb, the armor will grow to replace that limb, and it will function as that limb while you're wearing the armor. However, if you remove the armor, which it is capable to do, it says that the armor is not removable against your will. But if you choose to remove it, you do have that ability. And you happen to have lost your arm, then your arm will no longer be there. So when you wear the armor, you'll have all your limbs attached, with the exception of the fact that there's no actual physical arm in there. The armor takes care of all the actions that you would normally use with that particular hand if you happen to, say, lose your left hand. That's how this armor works. So it literally creates and stretches itself to the point where you have boots all the way through to your helmet and all down your arms to the point where you're wearing gloves, and it literally encompasses you in this entombed armor, if you will, or encased armor. Now, if you have chosen to remove the armor, it takes a full action for you to do so, so you wouldn't be able to do anything else for that particular round if you're in a combat scenario. Well, obviously, if you're not in combat, it's just like you're disrobing for some other reason. But it will remain the designated suit of arcane armor until you have chosen to wear another suit of armor or until you have died. Now you can see here that there's actually an image that you can look at to get an idea as to what this armor could potentially look like. Really, the limitation comes down to what your imagination will limit it to. Here they're not donning their headgear, but as you can see, the armor completely encompasses the rest of their bodies when it comes to how this armor has been grown around them, if you will, or designed by the armorer to look. Now, they have pretty similar designs. However, you'll notice that there is a central portion to this chest plate that comes around, whereas this is just a single plate and it's just a fairing that sits on top of each other. But the reason why I wanted to pull up this image, and you'll see here the name of these two things, is that actually ties into the final feature that you gain at level 3, and that is the armor model itself. So you get the ability to choose what kind of armor model it is. Are you going to be utilizing a Guardian set or an Infiltrator set? So the picture that I showed previously has each of those sets there. And in this particular case, you will have a number of capabilities that you can tie into it and that you gain depending on what you have chosen. So there's different properties for the Guardian armor versus the Infiltrator armor, and we'll take a look at those here in a second. So before we get to those properties, there's just a couple of things here I wanted to point out first. The first is that this decision is not 100% final. As long as you have taken a long rest and you have your smith tools available to you, the following morning after your long rest, or the following evening after your long rest, depending on the time of day that you started your rest, you'll be able to switch, for instance, your Infiltrator armor into a Guardian suit, or vice versa. So if you're not happy with the properties that you're using on one particular aspect of your campaign, you can switch to the other type. You're not restricted to it. The other thing is that each armor is going to gain what's called a special weapon. As part of that process, when you attack with the weapon, you can add your intelligence modifier to the actual attack and damage rolls rather than your strength or your dexterity. So there is a difference here that we might want to think about making use of and incorporating this into the Actions tab, but we'll get to that in a moment. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over the Guardian properties. And there are two key properties here. The Thunder Gauntlets are your quote-unquote special weapon. And if you hit somebody with this particular Thunder Gauntlet, you'll do 1d8 thunder damage on a hit, and the creature that is hit by you will suffer disadvantage on any attack roll against targets other than you until the start of your next turn, mainly because they're acting as a distraction. Kind of convenient on that, except now they're focusing their attack on you, but that's kind of the point. You're a Guardian. You're trying to gain their focus. The defensive field option here gives you the ability to gain temporary hit points equal to your level in this particular class. So in this case, this character would be able to gain 3 temporary hit points. You have the ability to use this as a bonus action the number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. So as your character levels up and as your proficiency bonus increases, your number of uses will also increase. We'll probably want to look at adding both of these to our Actions tab. So let's see what happens when we get everything sorted here and drop this into our character sheet. So the 1d8 thunder damage is already there, so we don't need to worry about that. But the bonus that is in place that we would actually get from being able to make use of our intelligence modifier is not there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new armorer group. Armorer. Okay, and with that group, I'm going to set up intelligence as our, damn it, did it again. There we go. As our capability here for all of these particular skills, because in this particular case, intelligence is our ability, our attack capability, and our saving throw triggers for when we're actually pushing a particular saving throw requirement on someone you're attacking. You could potentially put in daily uses as well, but that would more or less go across the entire grouping here. Now, the 1d8 thunder is specific to the gauntlets. I believe the 1d6 lightning is going to be specific to the lightning launcher here. So what I like to do as a DM is to recommend a couple of things. The defensive field has a use requirement in play here, whereas the Thunder Gauntlets does not. This means that I'm going to want to most likely separate out the ability to make use of that heal from my ability to attack and to deal with damage. So there are two things I like to do. Because there's also a chance that I might want to switch my armor to the Infiltrator group type at one point, I also like to separate things out from that perspective. And this is how I do it. So the first thing I do is I will actually open up this particular information sheet. And the reason why I'm doing that is because this has been grouped or linked into this particular armor group. And if I drag another copy of this armor model in here, it will create a second already in that group for me. I don't have to worry about that. Now, I also like to do this. Guardian. So I like to set it up so that there is a type here. And this will be Infiltrator. Oops. If I could type today, Infiltrator. There we go. So that sets up the quote-unquote groupings that I like to go through. And then I like to remove the other property from this particular setting. So in this case, that's going to be this effect here, as well as this effect here for the Guardian. And the healing capability is removed from the Infiltrator. And that creates two distinct separations for me to be able to work with here. Now, there is a melee attack requirement whenever you actually go through on a hit. So one thing I'm going to do here is add in another effect, which will be an attack roll. And the reason I'm putting that here is so that I can take advantage of my intelligence bonus being in play when it comes to this attack. I don't need to worry about modifying anything up here because none of these weapons will be set up to use the intelligence modifier. It's only this attack that should be set up to use the intelligence modifier. Additionally, I need to be able to add, where is it here? As it hit by the Guardian, has disadvantage attack rolls, deals center damage hit. Okay. So, one second here. Where was that? Yeah, here. So, when you attack with that weapon, you can add your intelligence modifier instead of strength or dexterity to the attack and damage rolls. So, I want to be able to ensure that my intelligence modifier is also set here. That way, I've now got my attack capability here, as well as my damage capability here. What about the disadvantage? Well, that is going to be a little bit trickier to deal with. And we'll circle back to that here in a moment. The next thing I want to do is actually set up my defensive field capability here. So, how am I going to do that? Well, what I like to do is, once again, I like to open up this, drag this into place, and what you will see is that the properties that are here have now been copied to here. None of the properties that we stripped out earlier are here anymore. And that's because of the state change that we had put into place here. I'm going to remove from this particular thing here, this action. Now I have just the damage there. And from here, I'm going to remove the damage and the attack roll so that I don't have to worry too much about that. And now what I can do is I can set up this one here to be equal to the number of uses that I can set this particular thing through. And you don't need to actually change the name here if you don't want to, because when you actually switch to combat mode and actions, you will see that the heal is here, but the attack and the damage are here. Even if you have them minimized, you still have the heal here, and your uses and your attack and your damage rolls are here. So you don't even need to worry about changing their name. And that sets everything up for this particular Guardian role, with the exception of the advantage and disadvantage rolls. We'll circle back to that in a moment. First I want to do is set up the Infiltrator and explain how that works. In relation to the Infiltrator option that you have here, the first special weapon that you're going to gain is the Lightning Launcher. And what this allows you to do is, at a normal range of up to 90 feet or a long range of up to 300 feet, you can make a ranged attack roll and potentially do 1d6 hit points of lightning damage on a hit. Additionally, once per turn, you can actually make use of an additional 1d6 of lightning damage. So if you look at our skill here, or a feature that we have here in the Actions tab, you'll see that we have our 1d6 lightning damage, but we also have this effect here. Well, what you would do in that particular case when you're making use of this extra damage is you would simply apply this effect to your character and then roll your damage. And that will actually trigger both of these damage rolls. I can see that we'll want to make sure that we add an attack roll here and set this to ranged. So let's set that to ranged. And we should still see that we have the +7 bonus here because, as we stated earlier, you gain your intelligence modifier to this particular attack roll. And that's +5 plus your proficiency bonus of +2 gives you +7. So we don't really need to make any additional adjustments there. Additionally, you will have something called powered steps that essentially allows you to walk 5 feet further than you normally would do. So by default, your speed is 35. With this armor in Infiltrator mode, you will have an additional 5 feet that you can actually travel. And you can simply modify that by opening up this magnifying glass that's next to your armor class indicator on your main tab, and simply add 5 there. You will have to remember, though, that if you did switch back to your Guardian armor, that 5 feet has to come off. So your character will only have this while they are wearing the Infiltrator variant of your armor. The last bit here is that if you're wearing an armor that you are not proficient in, chances are it will give you stealth disadvantage. Additionally, there are armor types that exist that also give you stealth disadvantage. Well, with this particular armor here, you are gaining the ability to cancel that disadvantage out. So the armor is going to give you advantage. If you are wearing an armor that gives you stealth disadvantage, you can essentially just eliminate this checkmark and not suffer the penalty. You won't gain any advantage because all it is doing is disabling that capability. However, you do gain advantage on dexterity stealth checks if the armor itself doesn't give you disadvantage. So this only applies, by removing this checkmark here, this only applies on any type of armor that would give you a disadvantage on your stealth. So how do we set that up? Well, that is actually fairly easy to do. All we need to do is add in an action here. We want to add an effect, and this effect is going to be dampening field. And I like to put in armor infiltrator, sorry, semicolon, and then we want to grant advantage on a check roll. So that means that we go ADV CHK. And you can put a colon there, or if it's the only thing, you can actually go through and simply apply that. Now, when you're in this condition, it is on you. When you're activating the Infiltrator armor, this is always there. That means that whenever you are wearing this armor, you will always have an advantage to your stealth checks. And in fact, we should be able to reduce this so it only gives you benefit on dexterity, which we can do simply by adding dexterity here. However, this is actually going to be incorrect. And the reason for that is this particular dampening field is supposed to restrict you to just the checks specific to stealth checks. Well, this particular configuration is going to give you advantage on any dexterity check you make. That makes this invalid. So what we want to actually do is go ADV skill, colon, and then do stealth. Oops. STELTH. There we go. And what that will give us is only advantage on any skill check that is associated with a stealth check. So if we actually go through and roll, say, an Arcana check, this will not apply. So that'll take care of that, and we'll run through showing an example of that here momentarily. But I want to circle back to dealing with the disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than yourself. Well, there is a way to do it, but it is a little bit of a convoluted way, which is why I waited to the end to do this. So I'm going to expand out, yeah, it's this one here. So Thunder attacks, and I'm going to create 2 new effects. One is going to create, quote unquote, a marker. The other is going to act on that marker, if that makes any sense. So if anyone who's familiar with Hunter's Mark from the Rangers class, you'll understand what I'm about to do. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to create a mark on a particular creature, or tag, if you will, on a particular creature. Now the effect in question, or the tag in question, is literally just going to be the description associated with this particular effect. So what I like to do is I like to call it Thunder Gauntlet Protection. And what that's going to do, and that will last for one round. Come on. There we go. I should have left it where it was. The other thing is going to be the effect that is actually going to make use of this. So in this particular case, is going to be Thunder Gauntlet again. Semicolon, IFT, colon, custom. And you want to paste that tag into there. And then this is going to be a semicolon. And you want to do disatk. Semicolon. This will also last for 1 round. Now, what will happen here is a bit of a short pain point for the players, but not many. This effect will get added to the people you are protecting, meaning that when this effect is on the rest of your party members, for instance, then whenever this condition applies, that you have now added to the creature that you connected with your Thunder Gauntlets, if it attacks anyone else who is under that protection in the first grouping, it will automatically gain a disadvantage to its attack. That's the theory, and this is always a little bit tricky to get right, so I apologize if I've missed something up here. So, why don't we go through and set up a quick combat scenario and run through all of the various things that are here. Alright, so I've gone through and I've added our armorer to this particular combat scenario, and I'm going to show everything that is here for now. So, I'm going to set up this ape as a protected creature when it comes to the actual skill here. And I'm going to attack, let's say, this zombie here. So this guy, I'm going to target him. I am going to make my attack roll. Not sure why that did so with disadvantage. Oh, because I had an aura effect here from the Dreadlord. Hang on a moment. Let it clear that out. Doesn't matter, I still hit with that, so I just don't want any other effects out there. So I have now hit, which means that I can do my damage, and we should see that it adds the +5 to that. I can now apply this particular effect to the creature, so this one here, to the creature, and this is what you'll see. While I will then have to go through the process of untargeting this creature and targeting the ape, and adding the second effect here, so the protection effect. Now what should happen is that when I go through and end my turn, those effects should remain there. Let's say the gas spore was out of the combat, it's just in the middle of nowhere. Now if this zombie goes through and actually targets that ape, interesting that it disappeared from the visibility there. There we go. So this zombie here has targeted this ape. What should happen is it should roll with disadvantage, and it does in fact roll with disadvantage. And let me see if I can do something here. So as you can see here, the attack occurred with a disadvantage roll. This is exactly what we want. So right here, this red dice means that it was a disadvantage roll. Anyone who happens to be colorblind to red will look for this keyword DIS so that you will know that it has been applied with a disadvantage roll. And that's how this particular process will work. Now here is where the issue comes into play. If I advance combat to the point where your next turn starts, we should see that the ape will lose its effect. And it does. Here's where the issue with this is. This should have lasted until the end of your turn, not just to your turn. So that's the only disadvantage with this particular thing, but you just have to keep that in mind. Well, that actually does go through and set that up nicely. Now, what about the temporary hit points aspect of it here? Well, as you can see, we're gaining 3 temporary hit points, and that's because of our level. So if I click this, you will see that I will gain 3 temporary hit points here. But I now have to actually make use of this. Now, let's say next round I go through and I lose 2 of those particular hit points. So let me say I'm down to 1 temporary hit point left. I can now click this again. It will replace the temporary hit points that are there. So you'll have to keep that in mind. And then this will go away. Now I can no longer use that until I have actually finished a long rest. Excellent. That's what I want. So the last thing I want to showcase are these things here. Now the first things first, let's put, yep, okay, it's already there. So I'm going to now target this zombie and untarget to the ape so that I can make an attack roll with this ranged attack. So I'm going to roll that. Somehow that still hit. I can now do this 1d6 lightning damage, but we don't have the bonus here, so there's something that we still have to add, and that's the intelligence bonus. Okay, so that takes care of that. Now I will do the damage, so not a whole lot in the way of damage. But I could have also done this. So let's say it's the next round again. Everyone has gone through, completed the turns. I have been completely missed for some reason, even by that adult red dragon. And I once again hit with this zombie. If I now add this effect into place on my character, when I roll this damage, it'll roll 2 dice. And obviously it will kill that particular zombie. That is excellent. Finally, this effect here, this is going to give me an advantage on stealth rolls. So just to prove that, let's say all of a sudden I'm being asked to make an Arcana check. You'll see that there's no advantage roll that has been made. Then, later on, I'm now asked to make a stealth check. You'll see that it now rolls with advantage. This is exactly what we want. This means that all of the features that we have set up here are working pretty much the way that we want them to. There's nothing else we need to do. And that actually completes everything that we have to do when it comes to setting up all of the features for level 3. So we've now finished setting up our class. The next feature we're going to gain, we aren't going to gain until we get level 5. And what we will be gaining is an extra attack capability. So let's quickly add 2 levels to this particular character. Now, anyone who has ever used a spellcaster before will remember that you generally don't get an extra attack unless you're a very specific type of spellcaster. The Artificer of the Armorer specialization is one of those particular categories. And in this particular case, you will now be able to attack twice whenever you take the attack action utilizing melee or ranged weapons. This isn't spells. Those spells fall under an entirely different category. But it does include the enhancements that you could theoretically make use of in relation to your armor, specifically your attack options for either your Guardian or Infiltrator armor set here. So you can now potentially attack twice with this particular ranged weapon, or attack twice with your fists. There is a few rules around that. When you're doing your normal attack action, you get the ability to attack twice. If, however, you are doing an attack of opportunity, you do not. You get to use one attack for that attack of opportunity, and that is actually specified right in the rules. So if you go to the player's handbook, load up the reference here, and search for opportunity, if I could spell it right. Nope. Let's go for combat order. So what we're looking for is the order of combat here for the first one. And if you look here within the rules of the reactions, it will state what you can and can't do through that reaction. However, I believe it's under making an attack here. Attack of opportunities. Here we go. In a fight, everyone is constantly watching for enemies to drop their guard. You can rarely move heedlessly past your foes without putting yourself in danger. Doing so provokes an attack of opportunity. You can make an opportunity attack when a hostile creature that you see moves out of your reach. To make the opportunity attack, you use your reaction to make one melee attack against the provoking creature. So it restricts you to one melee attack. You can no longer run with two attacks, as some people like to do when they're executing their extra attack during an attack of opportunity. That doesn't apply anymore. It is literally just one attack. So that is sort of the limitation around the extra attack capability. For all intents and purposes, if you had the ability to attack twice using the extra attack capability, as well as again as a bonus action, you could theoretically attack 3 times. I don't know if this particular class gains that ability a little bit later on, but at least with this, you now have the ability to attack twice. So with the armor modifications feature that you're going to gain at level 9, you are now gaining the ability to make use of your infuse items capability here. So all of your infusions that you have along here, as well as the number of infusions that you as a character will have as an artificer, to infuse separate pieces of your armor to acquire different capabilities. So you could infuse one property to the chest piece, another property to the boots, a third to the helmet, another to the special weapon, a fourth to the leggings, etc., etc., etc. So you can break up your armor into its disparate pieces and actually go through and add one of these things to that segment. So, where is it here? You will have to pay attention to some of the requirements, though, as well as to the level limitations. So you won't be able to go and do everything all at once. But you will be able to do it based on the total number of infusions that you currently have, in addition to the 2 bonus infusions that you get for your armor. So what this is giving you the ability to do at level 9 is infuse 5 things, but 2 of those things have to be specific to your armor. They can't be like other aspects that are not immediately attached to your armor. So you wouldn't be able to take a necklace and make use of that quote-unquote bonus infusion to actually go through and add an infusion to that. You could do it to your helmet. or you wouldn't be able to take a ring and take your other bonus infusion capability and add anything to it. You would have to do that to, say, the gauntlets associated with your armor itself. And that's how that works. This isn't something that you'll be adding to your actions page here. You will literally just be making use of it as a feature. And you would follow all of the other guidelines that the infusion skill gives you. I would also like to point out that at level 9, you are also gaining an increase in your proficiency bonuses, which means that the skill that we have here, where you have to actually tick it to use it, you can now set this up to be 4 daily uses as opposed to just 2 or 3. And at level 5, you would gain the ability to set it up for 3 uses. So you are gaining an increased capacity to use this over the course of a day. In addition, you're now gaining up to 15 temporary hit points, because I've already actually modified this character to be level 15 in preparation for perfected armor. But I just realized that I had actually forgotten the proficiency bonus here. So I just wanted to point that out. Now, at level 15, you are gaining perfected armor as the last and final feature you will gain through this class specialization. It is going to give you a couple of properties, and it's all going to be based on the model of armor you have chosen to wear and or are currently wearing. The first, if you're wearing the Guardian variant of the suit of armor, whenever a creature of huge or smaller that you can see within 30 feet of you ends its turn within 30 feet of you, you have the ability to force it to make a strength saving throw or get pulled up to a position within 5 feet of you that is empty. And it can move up to 30 feet. So if that creature happens to be 30 feet away, but you do not have a free space with which you can pull it into immediately next to you, it would only go 25 feet. But if you do have the ability to pull it into a block or a square that is immediately next to you from its direct pathing towards you, it will get pulled right next to you. And if that does in fact happen, you now have the ability to make a melee-based weapons attack as part of that reaction. And I should point out, this whole thing is a reaction. So this is not going to be where you can make a double attack if you happen to have the extra attack skill. This is going to be where you can attack once. Now, you get a number of uses equal to your proficiency bonus, and at level 15, we have a +5 proficiency bonus. So there are 2 things that we need to be able to do here. One is the pull. The second is set up the uses for the Guardian side of it. So let's go through and add this. Oops, not that. Add this to our actual actions tab here. So armorer. I'm going to pull that down. I'm going to minimize all of the Guardian stuff here and Infiltrator stuff so that we're just looking at this particular thing here. Now, we've added this particular skill, if you will, into this particular grouping, which means it should already be set up to make use of our intelligence modifier for the strength check. All we have to do is click that so that it will force an update. And this is correct, by the way. That is a DC 18 that creature has to make. The melee attack is already set up, but it is not necessarily gaining any bonuses. So if you're going to make use of this particular melee attack for this particular skill, I would highly recommend just simply using this melee attack, because you are going to gain the benefit of that. And if you're just making a normal melee attack, well, you're just going to be rolling up here anyway. You're not going to be making use of this. In fact, I would actually argue you should clear that out, just so that you don't misuse it. And that sets everything up for the saving throw aspect of it. What about the uses? Well, we see that this part is here as well. That is literally going to be tied to the Infiltrator side of it. So before I do anything with this, I'm going to want to open up this and then drag this back into here and remove that from this particular, oops, not add. I want to remove this one from here and set this up as the Guardian side of things. Now what I can do is I can set this up for a limited number of uses. So Perfected Guardian will be 5, and that will now be 5. And okay, perfect. So we now have 5 uses where we can make use of this particular skill. Excellent. We can now minimize that. What about the Infiltrator side of things? So with the Infiltrator one, we're gaining a few properties that the Guardian one didn't provide. The first is that any creature that takes lightning damage from your lightning launcher now glimmers with magical light until the start of your next turn. During that particular point in time, this creature will shed dim light in a 5-foot radius and has disadvantage on attack rolls now made against you, as the light, mainly because the light's distracting it and jolting it. In addition, the next attack roll against it has advantage, and if that attack hits, that's an if, the creature takes an extra 1d6 damage. So, in addition, the next attack roll against it has advantage. So that is not necessarily restricted to you. So there's a couple of things that we can do here. We already have the 1d6 damage, but for some reason it is applying to you. That kind of leads me to believe that in addition, the next attack roll against it has advantage actually does mean if you make that attack against it, not if anyone else makes that attack against it. Okay, so, and that sort of connects with the lightning damage itself. So there's a couple of things that we can set up here. The first is that we can set up the disadvantage against you. That is going to be relatively straightforward. I'm going to quickly update this to be Infiltrator. Again, because you have the ability to swap armor back and forth, it's nice to have that. I'm going to delete this saving throw, as we don't need that here. I'm going to add in a new effect, and that effect is going to be to grant disadvantage, but this is going to be for Perfected Armor. Armor, Infiltrator, semicolon, grant dis ATK. And it's going to be on you. And I suspect this is going to be until your next round. Yeah, until your next turn. So, with that in place, there's going to be a trick as to how this will be applied. If we take a look at this particular ability, it's going to grant disadvantage on a particular creature to you. Well, the way to actually properly do that is to hold down the Shift key before you drag this particular effect over to the creature in question. And the reason being is that you want that particular creature and only that particular creature to be given the disadvantage attack against you. And this is how you do it. So when you drop that effect on them while you're holding down the Shift key, and you have to hold down the Shift key before you pick up this effect button and drop it onto there, it will then focus that by adding this TRGT flag, if you will. So just for clarity, this is what it looks like, and it will tell you that it's targeting the succubus. So if this succubus happened to be the one that you targeted with the lightning attack from your Infiltrator, your armor model grouping feature, then you can actually go through and restrict it so that that particular creature is the only one that would suffer that disadvantage attack. So that takes care of that. In addition, the next attack roll has advantage on it. So now you want to grant yourself advantage on that same target. Let's see if the same kind of thing will work for an advantage roll. So let's see this. Perfected Armor. Armor, Infiltrator. Semicolon. ADV ATK, and this is going to be on you on 1 round for the next action. So let's see what happens with that. So if, once again, if I take this and I hold down the shift key and I drag this onto the succubus, it should target this advantage on the attack roll to that succubus. So let's say that I have not used any attack as of yet, outside of the previous turn. So this is now I've now circled around to my next turn. Let's just say that for now as the example. If I target, untarget zombie 1 and target the succubus, if I make an attack roll, it should roll with advantage and the effect should go away, which it does. Excellent. So now I could hit that. That is what I want. I want it to go away, and that succubus has essentially damage incoming. So in this case, it'll be that it'll resist it a little bit because it's protected against that to a certain degree. But the effect worked the way that I wanted it to, and it was focused solely on that. I can prove that by doing this. If I drag that back onto there, once again, I have now targeted or dropped that onto that particular succubus. If I untarget the succubus and let's say target zombie 2, when I make an attack roll, it won't roll with advantage and the effect won't go away. So I can make a first attack on this zombie, do the damage to it that I'm going to do, and then let's say I've now decided to use my second attack against the succubus again, and I'm going to make use of my Infiltrator capability. I'm going to roll my attack against that. It will roll with advantage. Excellent. Now I can do my damage and reset everything again. So I'm now setting myself up where the next turn I can do something again. Excellent. Just for kicks, let's roll the damage. Perfect. Now, the third thing is if it connects with that extra attack, I can do 1d6 of extra lightning damage. Well, what this means is as follows. We've already got the effect there. That's right here. So let's say that I went through and made the attack against this with that there. So let's actually go through and make the attack. And let's use this. Why wouldn't I? So it is hit. Well, here's the fun part. If I have not as of yet used this effect, I can add this. So I'm already doing 1d6 of lightning damage. And because of the advantage roll, and because I have connected, I can now add this. So I can now do 2 additional d6 of damage on top of the 1d6 that I'm now doing. You can really stack up the damage. And as you can see, we did quite a bit of hit points to that particular succubus. Excellent. That is everything working the way that we need to. Have we forgotten anything? No. Okay, so we are good. And there are no use limitations on this particular one. And with that, that actually goes through and sets up everything that we need to do for this particular class specialization because there are no additional features that we're gaining past level 15. I hope you enjoyed this particular video. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to drop them into the fields below. If you like or dislike the video, click the relevant thumbs up or thumbs down to let me know how well I'm doing. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a good one. I wish to thank you for taking the time to watch this particular video. I hope you found it informative and useful to familiarizing yourself with Fantasy Grounds in general, and that you had fun in the process. If you found the video useful and you liked the content of the particular video, go ahead and click that like button to let me know. And if you have any questions specific to the topic covered by this particular video, or just have some comments in general, please feel free to post something in the comments section, and I will do my best to respond to any questions that are asked. Additionally, I do release content quite regularly, and it's generally specific to Fantasy Grounds or 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons at this time. So if you'd like to be notified when new videos come out, go ahead and subscribe and click the notification bell to ensure that notification is sent to you when I release a new video.